there is something you have carried for a long time. The feeling that no matter how present you are in a room, no matter how much you say or how clearly you say it, something essential about you does not fully land. People like you, but they don't quite get you. And somewhere along the way, you made a decision about what that means. You decided it means something is wrong with you, that you are too much, or not enough, or broken in some way that is difficult to name, but easy to feel. I want to offer you a different explanation, not a comforting one, not a flattering one, the true one. You were never meant to be understood by everyone, and the sooner you stop trying to be, the sooner you become something worth being understood by. The cost of being understood. Watch what happens when a man decides that being understood is the goal. He starts editing, not his words, his thoughts. Before he speaks, he runs everything through a filter. Will this land? Will they get it? Will saying this make me easier or harder to be around? And slowly, without realizing it, he removes everything that is genuinely his. The opinions that are too specific, the humor that not everyone follows, the silence he needs that others find uncomfortable, the way he sees things that doesn't match how the room sees things. He sands it all down until what remains is something everyone can understand. Easy to read, easy to like, easy to forget. Because here's the thing about being universally understood. It requires you to be universal, and universal means generic, and generic means interchangeable. And interchangeable means that the room loses nothing when you leave it. The men who are remembered, genuinely remembered, not just recalled, are almost never the men who were easiest to understand. They were specific, particular, difficult to fully place. They made people work slightly harder to receive them. And that slight difficulty is exactly what made them worth the effort. What misunderstanding actually is. Jung spent his entire career studying what he called individuation, the process by which a man becomes fully and specifically himself, not a better version of what others expect, not a more acceptable version of what he started as, but the complete expression of what he actually is. And Jung noticed something that most people miss. The further a man moves toward genuine individuation, toward becoming truly and specifically himself, the harder he becomes to fully understand, not because he becomes strange or difficult, but because depth is harder to read than surface. A shallow pool is completely transparent. You can see the bottom from anywhere. Nothing is hidden because nothing is deep enough to hide. A deep body of water is darker, more difficult to see through, not because something is wrong with it, because it contains more. The misunderstanding you have carried your whole life is not evidence of a deficit. It is evidence of depth. The people who cannot fully read you are not seeing something wrong. They are hitting the limit of their range. You were not built for everyone's range. You were built for the few who have the depth to receive you. The men who were never understood. Every man who ever changed something was misunderstood first, not as a coincidence. As a prerequisite, Nikola Tesla was considered by his contemporaries to be brilliant, but impossible to follow. His ideas arrived faster than the world could receive them. He died largely alone. The world spent the next 100 years catching up to what he saw clearly in an instant. Van Gogh sold one painting in his lifetime, not because the work was not extraordinary, because the world was not yet equipped to understand what extraordinary looked like before it had been validated by time. Schopenhauer published his most important work at 30. It was almost completely ignored. He spent decades writing in near obscurity before the world finally turned toward him. He was not wrong before they understood him. He was early. I am not telling you that you are a misunderstood genius. I am telling you something more useful than that. The gap between who you are and what the world can currently receive is not a problem to be solved by making yourself smaller. It is a gap to be held patiently without apology. What to do with it? So what do you do with the knowledge that you were never meant to be understood by everyone? You stop performing for the wrong audience, not dramatically, not with a declaration or a withdrawal, just quietly. You stop editing the thoughts that are most yours to make them more digestible for people who were never going to fully receive them anyway. You stop measuring your worth by how many people understand you in a room, and you start measuring it by something harder and more honest. Whether the people who do understand you, the few, the particular, the ones with the range, receive something real when they encounter you, or something edited Because the tragedy is not being misunderstood by the many. The tragedy is being misunderstood by the few, because you were performing for the many when the few finally arrived. The right people will find you. They always find the specific ones, because the specific ones are the only ones worth finding. You were not built for everyone's range. Stop apologizing for that. The next video goes deeper into the specific thing that makes certain men impossible to ignore and impossible to fully know. You know where to find it.